Hey, everybody, it's Simone here with Bella and Timothy Brainard. So, as you know, Bella, co-creator of the 64 Doors and Human Design and Gene Key Ambassador Extraordinaire, and I have been having these series of soul conversations. And in one of our conversations, Bella was telling me about Timothy Brainard and the body keys. And I got so excited. And I had to do it with him. And so Bella and I both did the body keys with Timothy. And it was so exciting to us. We reached out and asked him if he'd have a conversation with us because Bella and I are all about pragmatic information that helps people succeed in their lives. And the body keys is just that. So I have extra weight that I refer to. And when Bella told me about the body keys, I thought, oh my gosh, this might be a way to help me understand the energy that I'm moving around this world with. I don't want to make it right or wrong. It just is. And I want to understand it energetically. And so that was my motivation to have a session with Tim or do the body keys with Timothy. And it was mind-blowing. So if you've been listening to the soul conversations with Bella and I, in one of the conversations, Bella, which one was it about focusing on what we're doing right? Do you remember which key that was?
See, I can't remember. I
Was
feel
it
like
three?
they are all so.
No, it was either, I think, in either soul conversation with the archetype of Gene Key 3 or 21. And we were, I think the key was talking about, focusing on what we're doing well. And honestly, after doing the body keys with Timothy Brainard, oh my goodness, I was so affirmed in what I'm actually doing. But what it helped me understand is the patterning of what I'm doing well and how it relates to this system. And so I had made my own little key code, my decoder ring from my session with Tim. But Timothy, why don't you take it away? Or Bella, do you have anything to add before we
No, I want to hear Tim.
Okay, Timothy, why don't you tell us about the body keys and what's going on?
Okay, I would love to. So I guess what I'll begin with is just a brief introduction to what the body keys are. The body keys are what I like to refer to as a developing system. I say this because they're still coming to life more and more for me every single day. So Simone, what you have received, and Bella, what you have received as well, these are a doorway or a gateway. They're leading to something, and they're opening up into experience, really, into a whole new way of relating to the body. So the point of the body keys, and I believe that the reason they introduced themselves to me and now are introducing themselves to you through me, is to help us to navigate from those moments of stuckness or tension back into our natural state of ease. The human animal is remarkably intelligent. And when I refer to the human animal, I'm actually pointing at the physical body itself, this temple of the body, which holds our deepest wisdom. We have this remarkable capacity for elegance. This is a word that's always been really important for me. Elegance and ease, they stand out, and there's something about the words themselves that you can feel yourself inside of. They're what I like to refer to as feeling words. And so I've been operating off this premise for years now, that at the core of who we are, at our truest nature with a capital N, we are in fact perfectly at ease, and we're relaxed and alert and capable of taking in all this amazing information of the world around us. And we're even capable of relating to it in beautiful ways. It's only when we get in the way of this natural flow of easeful elegance that we find ourselves tensing up. And so it's this tension, this stuckness, which of course can present on any level. We become physically stuck as our jaws clench and our shoulders lock up and our breathing comes high up into the chest. but we also become tense mentally and emotionally, and even in our ideals and spiritual ideals, we tend to make ourselves smaller than we are. So the body keys serve that process of locking up by reminding us of the body's natural capacity for taking that breath and returning to its position of empowered elegance.
Wow.
Yeah. It's exciting even to hear about, isn't it?
Yeah.
I see Bella just smiling over there. I like to see that.
I love how you use the word elegance as you
Mhm.
described, because that's the feeling I had when I understood my patterning and how you took me through the body key that you sent me.
That's really exciting for me to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
The word elegance found me after a pretty intense process. I've never really told anyone else this, certainly not in a public venue, but I'll share it with the two of you and everyone listening now. There was a 5-week process during which I went searching for my words. And over the course of this 5 weeks, I was searching for the words that contributed to this vision I held of my absolute best self. It's quite a process. Every morning for about an hour to 2 hours, I would sit and I would workshop these words. And at first there were hundreds of words, right? All these like descriptors and like facets or ways of understanding this person that I saw, how he held himself, how he spoke. And I was looking for these descriptors, and every day they'd whittle down and whittle down and whittle down until finally at the end of 5 weeks, I found my 2 words. And those words are gentle and elegant. And so written into who I am and who I intend to be and how I have chosen ever since to carry myself and to cultivate within me are the very, like, I guess, foundation of what eventually became the body keys. So it's exciting for me, since that's so personal, to share something like this with you and find that you in your own way and in your own life, in the context of your own story, found the same basic footing in this idea of elegance. Exciting. Thank you.
It's magical.
Yeah, it's magical. There's the word. It really is.
Yeah, Simone, I resonate with you with this realizing what we're doing right. So without thinking about it, the other day when I had helicopters outside, I actually shared about it yesterday on YouTube, but I had helicopters outside and I started to like really tense up because I'm quite good with everything that's going on in the world to not get caught up in it. But when the generator had helicopters and police cars and, red and blue lights, my body really tensed up. And what I did was that I put on music, and one of my body keys is the soundscape. And I lay down in the sofa and I started to rub my belly and kind of like just feel into the body. And then suddenly I was completely fine again. And I realized that must be soundscape. I created a new environment. So it's the same as you say, Simone. We are naturally also doing them, and some of them maybe are easier. So what I see now is that is something I go to. So maybe the other keys that's also where the balance, and that's something I want to ask you, Timothy, because I think maybe I often go to that one, and the other ones might not be that used, to kind of also see if we have 3 keys or have 4 keys, how can we include all of them in order to come into a state that is more harmonious?
Yeah, beautiful. That's a great question and an important one. I want to respond to it, but I want to rewind just a little bit to the first thing that you said, because this is important as well. The body keys, they continue to surprise me in this way. They're really not introducing anything new. In every single case to date, the feedback has been, oh, I've always been ... This is what I mean by the body's inherent wisdom. The body knows precisely what to do in order to reestablish this position, this empowered stance of ease, right? We're the ones who get in the way by trying to either figure it out for ourselves or arguing with it because for whatever reason it's not okay. Or sometimes, if we're being honest, when we're that stuck, we don't really want to get away from it. We'd rather complain and like spin our wheels and blow hot steam. It's like sometimes we just feel miserable and it's hard to want to even escape it. It's like that weird paradox. So anyway, the point is the body knows precisely what to do. It's our job to allow it. And so the body keys aren't showing you something you don't know. They're reminding you of something you've always known, and they're giving you direct access to it so you can look right down at it and from that point forward begin to consciously apply it as a tool. That's why they excite me, because they bring us more and more consciously into our own lives on an embodied level. And they connect this remarkable resource of the mind to the great well of wisdom that is the body. And we get to start, you use the word harmonious, we get to start allowing these two forms of consciousness to play well together, to contribute to one another. So there's that. Now, in response to your question about someone who has multiple body keys, it's fairly common for someone to have several. Everyone has one or several body keys. In my case, there's like 5. In each of your cases, there are 3.
Right.
And there are a lot of different things contributing to how that is the case, but you've got 3. And so a fun game to play is precisely what you just pointed at, which is how can I synthesize each of these different keys and kind of come up with this like master plan to like break any moment of tension, that sort of thing. And you totally can do that. And it's worth noting that in every personal formula that I create, you scroll down to almost the very bottom, you'll find a section called your personal formula. And it's actually the hardest part of the whole thing for me, because I have to sit and put myself in your shoes and consider how I might wrap it all together. And I'll write like a sentence or 2 about how to play with that. But ultimately, the responsibility for finding out how that works comes down to each one of us as we start to contemplate these different keys and these different resources that are delivered through the body keys and how we can make use of them in new ways in our everyday experience. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's in response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a follow-up question on that too. So I'm thinking, so I know that if we are, when you spoke about how what they are connected to, and we spoke about human design and circuitry, and I'm wondering, because if somebody has a lot of different kinds of circuitry, for example, they're going to do more body keys, and I'm thinking almost like what's accepted in society might be more kind of the logical. There are certain types of ways of being that are more accepted. So I'm wondering, for example, the abstract, or if maybe also from outside conditioning, like in human design, there are some circuits that we're not allowed to live out that much. So maybe we're less in touch with those body keys, although they inherently are there in us, but those processes are less allowed and less. So I'm wondering if you have felt or seen, or if that's something that you would be able to speak to, or if you have experience with it.
Absolutely. In fact, your profile is a really great example of this. And I think what I'm about to share with you actually contributes to your previous question and this one. So one of your body keys is the key of privacy. And this relates to the stuckness pattern of compromise. And it, excitingly, it allows for this gift of sovereignty to arise. Now, I don't want to go too far into the human design technical side of things, since we're really focused on allowing this conversation to focus on pragmatic application. But I can tell you that this particular body key of privacy and its gift of sovereignty, it's all directly connected to the integration channels. And so that these are kind of troublemakers in the context of human design too, because they're so perfectly individual. It's fully focused on this keynote of self-empowerment. It's all about you. And so it's not always perfectly acceptable in a social setting to escape that social setting and to create for yourself personal space.
Yeah.
If everything in your body is saying, I've got to get out of here, but expectations dictate that you must remain, you're at odds with yourself. But ultimately, the body knows what it needs in order for you to regain your center, right? So this is one great example. Now, Simone, you have a fun example too, because one of your patterns, stuckness patterns, is discord. And this relates specifically to relational discord, right?
Yes.
And it has the key of nurture. Now, this is an exciting key, because this key is extremely embodied. It's very much about like escaping a moment where you feel under relational threat and removing yourself to a place where you feel safe and comfortable, where you're surrounded by textures and fragrances that support a sense of like catching your breath, right? And so here's another one where maybe you're face to face with someone who by on purpose or otherwise is causing you to feel threatened. Your body will know that it needs to withdraw from that moment. It knows that if you stay put, you will continue to feel more and more threatened, which will make you more and more tight and constricted, and you will either repress or react, neither one of which is going to serve you.
Right.
And so
if I mean, I can think of many situations when you were just talking. I had this little Pomeranian for years and years and years. Her name was Dottie West, and she was a little black fur ball. And when I was in confined space and someone came at me, I when somebody comes at me in an aggressive way, I feel punched by that energy.
Yes.
And I often, it like takes my breath away.
Yes.
And so it takes my breath away, and it takes me a minute. But when I had the little Pomeranian, if she was in the room with me, and she often was, I used to take her to work with me, and she would be under my desk. And if somebody came into my office upset, she would literally jump up and put herself between me and the person, and just like rubbing her, like petting her soft fur.
Yes.
Would help me get my breath back, but yeah, absolutely. And so I'm excited to hear what the pragmatics is about that, because it's been a challenge my whole life. Because once I have that feeling where I feel like I've been punched energetically, it does take me a while, like, an hour later or 2 hours later, when I'm walking or, driving, I go, oh, why didn't I do this? But in the moment, it escapes me. So I would love to hear your pragmatics for me.
Well, amazingly, you didn't need me or you in those instances, because you had your dog. And it's actually very exciting for me to hear this story, because it is perfectly aligned with what is happening in the story of this gift of nurture. So this, from a human design perspective, and Bella, you'll enjoy this, it's directly connected to tribal circuitry. And so really the gift of nurture, or the key of nurture rather, is very focused on like cuddling. It's about getting close to things. And if other people aren't going to fit that bill, think about it. Generally speaking, that stuckness pattern of discord is going to be a result of something relational. There's other people. So you're probably escaping to pets, plants, a blanket. Really we're dealing primarily with the senses of touch and smell when we're looking at this key of nurture. And so the question of how you can withdraw to a space that has these key elements in place. I mean, in your case, here's a synthesis. You have the key of organization, which is its sensor is visual. So we're dealing with aesthetics. And you have the key of nurture. So for you, you've got a really like complex situation in order for you to feel comfortable. It's not just going to be a blanket that feels nice. It's going to have to like be a particular texture. And then maybe the paint in the room is going to have to be a certain color. Maybe one color causes you to feel off and another color causes you to feel calm. And so there's all these different ways that we can prepare or set an environment for ourselves that serves this process. And this is where the body keys become so powerful, because until now, we've been dependent upon the Pomeranian reading our energetic state when we were incapable of it, right? And saving us, right? Or, Bella, in your case, you applied 2 keys as well. You removed yourself, you went to the couch alone, there's your privacy, you put on some music, there's your soundscape, and then you brought yourself into the body. This is precisely what it is. This particular gift of originality that comes out of your key of soundscape. It's all about returning to the ability to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are, like rubbing circles around your stomach, just bringing yourself back into this like center of who you are. You are returning to a feeling state, because what happens when we become tense is we withdraw from life, right? I trained for a period of time in a really unique form of martial arts known as guided chaos. And one thing that I learned is that when you tighten the body, you become less sensitive to input.
Mm-hmm.
So the most remarkable thing about self-defense, true self-defense, is actually learning that the closer and more intimate you can become with the energy of an aggressor, the more information you can take in, and the more adaptable you are able to become. Aikido is built on this same basic premise.
Mm-hmm.
So we're learning about so many things here. We're learning how to come back into the body in those moments. We're learning the differences between relaxed momentum, this natural flow, and the way that tension actually removes us from contact with life itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the breath comes high up into the chest, our thinking scatters, and we end up alienating ourselves from the moment. This is a defense mechanism, but it does not in fact protect us. So the body keys contribute to meeting life more fully in order that we have a more empowered position in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I just monologued for a while.
No, I was thinking about everything you were saying. And when I was at work, I had painted, I was given choices of paint, and I had chosen this really lovely purple. It was a purple wall behind me. And I almost always have some plant, blooming plant or flowers on my desk. And I would also often have an aromatherapy,
Mm-hmm.
some essential oil right on my desk. And what as I was listening to you, I was thinking, okay, Dottie West isn't with us anymore, so I don't have my Pomeranian guidance system to jump up and bring her soft little body to cuddle with me. So I'm thinking to myself that in the future, if I'm in that situation where I engage with someone and I feel like that, even if it's not in a situation, in an environment that I have created or controlled, what I can immediately do is look for a color or look for something alive and breathe with that.
Yes.
And then I really love what you were saying about go into the energy that's coming at me. But I can do that with courage. If I can find anything that's beautiful or anything that I can connect with in that moment, even if I have to look, because I like the clothes that I wear. I love the colors that I have. Even if I hold on to myself, it's so interesting. I usually choose fabrics that are very soft and colors that I really love. So, and I usually have some elevation, an essential oil of elevation. But now when I know that when I'm in this situation, I can draw on the things that I have with me. I can, put my wrist up to my nose and smell my elevation.
Yes.
I can touch my soft fabric and look at the color that I love.
Yes.
And I can breathe. And then I can go into I'll have the wherewithal and the understanding of the pattern then to go into that energy. And I feel like I've gotten so many tools in just what you shared. It really even further brings the body keys to life for me.
That's so good. Yes. You're really, really figuring this out. This is precisely what I intended when I created this work. I refer to it as a map and a toolkit. The map is what you receive in your profile, but the toolkit is something you create. And that's precisely what you just did. And it is also the very next thing I was going to share with you. You get this information, and that's one set of tools, but ultimately you can prepare in advance of these situations. In the past, we find ourselves stuck and then we scramble to feel better. In this case, we can literally fill our pockets with the tools that we need ahead of time. So I do this all the time. I have all of the keys that each of you, holds in your profile. So I've experienced all of these things myself. And so for me, clothes is huge. Textures, fabrics, they matter. Every article of clothing that I wear down to my socks and underwear is very intentionally chosen. Very specific fabrics, all natural fibers. This is like a really nice merino wool shirt that I have on. You see me fussing with my hair. I'm not trying to look pretty. It soothes me. And this is what the keys do. They soothe tension and they return us to our center by the texture of my hair. I have essential oils on my scalp. so that I can constantly have this. Today it's peppermint and lavender. Boom, it's always there. My wallet is a very, very specific wallet because I wanted a particular fabric from the exact brand of my choice, and it's with me at all times, right? So then if I find myself in a position where I am tensing up, I have to put my hands in my pockets, and I am already applying the body keys. So what you've tapped into is 100% right. And I'm looking at you now and I'm noticing your jewelry. Here's your aesthetic element. I would guess that you probably fondle the jewelry on your fingers and on your.
All the time.
Yeah.
I'll do this. This is one of my favorite pieces. I often put my hand on it. It's like a heart to me. It, you know, it looks and feels like a heart, and I'll often do that. Or and I like, even with my jewelry, today I have on this odd mix, but I know it's to other people it might not make sense, but I have like opals, I have a black pearl, I have turquoise, and then I have 4 or 5 different stones in here.
Wow.
And for me, when I ask in the morning what is in my highest good to wear, I know it's a crystal grid. I know that to other people, they'd be like, well, why does she have that on? You know, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't all go together. But for me, it's a grid. And some days I wonder, oh, is this a grid for me? Is this a grid for all of humanity? Is this a grid for the people I'm going to encounter today? Especially when it's an odd mix of things that I wouldn't have naturally put together. But yeah, absolutely. You know, and I have a bracelet, a pearl bracelet that, I wear all the time, and I will often just haul the pearls, which is, Bella, a water element. You know, we were always talking about being in the water. So yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's very exciting. I mean, I'm looking at both of you, and I recognize that the key that you both share is this key of organization. And it's worth noting this key because the word organization tends to indicate cleaning, you know, organizing a space, for instance. But its value here extends so far beyond that, especially when we realize the sensor that it's connected to, which is the eyes and these like aesthetic preferences. So I noticed that both of you, though different, have very refined personal brands, right? You know, Bella, you have chosen your backdrop and the feather that you wear and the way that you wear your hair and your clothing, and each of us in our own way is like this, but that's by design. And whether we knew that we were applying the body keys or not, when we present ourselves in a very specific way, we're living inside of the very ideas that are presented in the body keys. And so this is a way of holding our center proactively, preemptively. That's what it's aiming for in the end. Because really, though our lives tend to play out in this constant like pendulum swing between the stuck feeling and the looseness, the stuckness and the ease. Ultimately, what we're aiming for is this relaxed state of presence where we're expressing the gift. I mean, discord, that relational threat, to consider that on the other side of discord is harmony. Gorgeous. It's so exciting and so beautiful to recognize that. To think that the way that you dress yourself could contribute in any way to the gift on the other side of overwhelm, which is clarity, that's remarkable. All of a sudden, these mundane activities and choices that we make are not in the least bit mundane. They're illuminated with value and meaning, and they change not only how we feel, but the quality of how we meet our own lives.
That is so fascinating, because I, here at my desk, so I'm, you know, I like to make lists, and I don't just like paper. I go and I buy cardstock, and
Yes.
I want it to be a pretty color.
Yeah.
And because I wanted to, when I look at my lists, and I have my little lists in paper, when I look at my list, I want to enjoy it. And I often will write with a pen that is a color that I like, and that goes with the paper that I, you know, because I want it to all be beautiful in my desk. You know?
Yes.
I have 4 colors on my pen always.
Oh, right.
Like pink and purple and turquoise.
And my pen has a leather sheath that matches its machined aluminum. You know, like each of us in our own way is, and this is the beauty, we all share this single key, and yet the diversity in the way that it plays out in each of our lives, it's rather hilariously perfect and yet completely personal in every case. Yeah, very exciting.
I was wondering if I could share like just scroll the charts, and I have a question that came up with the nurturing. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's very okay with me. Absolutely.
So I was wondering, because when I heard nurturing, so here we have Simone, so we were saying the body keys are activity, organization, and nurture.
Yes.
And I was wondering, because this is kind of what I see with people I work with in the world, that many times, you know, we have with the world and how it is, and maybe how we were also brought up, you know, when kids are not happy, their mom might be like, okay, stop crying, come on, I'm going to give you some chocolate, you know, so that we think that nurture is going to take us out of the discord. So I'm wondering, you know, sometimes I feel also with the conditioning that we might misunderstand our body keys, so maybe we go and eat chocolate, or maybe we start to crazily, you know, make organization. So how before we are aware, we can kind of exaggerate. And how, if you've seen that, like, it's just a thought, if we inherently know that this is what we need, but we haven't calibrated to what extent we need to do it, might be extremes of it.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a very great question.
And it's a great one for me because I have a story, you know, that I can share. But go ahead, Tim, and I'll, I mean, this relates, what you just said, it relates to my whole growing up, you know?
Okay. So I would say I have a two-tiered response, which I'll share with you now. The first is that each of these body keys, as you scroll through the profile, becomes expanded. And so, as both of you know, there's a larger section dedicated to each of the individual keys, which speaks to their the sensors and the senses that they're directly related to. I would encourage anyone who's engaging with the body keys to pay very close attention, not only to this, but to every word of the profile. They're all on purpose. They all have meaning. In this case, it would be useful to recognize that nurture is connected to sense of touch and your skin, and the sense of smell and fragrance, the nose. So that would kind of lead you in a different direction from chocolate, for instance, right? That said, here's the second tier of my response. If what we're learning to do is listen into the body signals and to trust that the body's wisdom supersedes our mental capacity to figure shit out when, you know, things are uncomfortable, well, then I would encourage you to trust what the body calls for in the moment. Because even though it might be technically true that chocolate is sugary and arguably unhealthy, and that we shouldn't cope with intense emotional moments through food and yada, 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 honestly, if you're feeling under threat on an animal level and your body is desperate to escape and relax into a bite of chocolate, then by all means, I would recommend trust the body and allow it to relax by any means. Because once you return to that relaxed position, all of the giftedness that is natural for you arises. And on the other side of this is harmony. So I think that if a bar of chocolate is what, or a bowl of ice cream or whatever it takes, is what leads you to that you've really gained something. And ultimately, I think that if you're learning to listen in more and more to the body, I think the body has a remarkable way of guiding us away from those things which don't serve us and towards those things that do. So what's a chocolate bar today might be a different thing a year from now if you're really with this process. In fact, I can basically guarantee that it will be. Does that make sense?
Totally.
But Simone, I want to hear, because I feel like that totally makes sense. And at the same time, I think we can get stuck in patterns. And I can see that with my mom, for example. I can see that, you know, that actually it's been there since childhood and it's learned. So it's kind of the pattern overrides the body. And I don't know if that's, you know, something similar for you, Simone, but I would love to hear what you wanted to share from your life.
Yeah, I mean, as a child, my mom was a nurse, right? So she didn't, you know, and she grew, you know, her nurse training taught her the food pyramid. Yeah. And, you know, she cooked very specific meals and she served our plates with an appropriate, you know, what she felt was an appropriate serving size, right? So there wasn't nurturing through food, you know, food was just food, fuel, and you know, you ate. But in my parents' home, my parents were big readers, and they had shelves of books. And even as a young child, I was allowed to read any book that was on the shelf.
Oh, cool.
I wanted. I had no no restraint on what I could read. And I grew up Catholic in the South. I was clairvoyant from my earliest memories. And at night, I would have these things in my room, and I had no one to talk to about. I felt like, I learned from a toddler that I was wrong.
Hmm.
And probably my family didn't understand, when I was asking questions or whatever, or saying things. But I learned that was, nobody wanted to know about that and not to talk about it. So then, when I'm, in my room at night and I'm seeing all these things, the way that I dealt with that was that I read. And it got to the point where I would read all night, because if I was reading and the little light was on, all of the stuff that was scary would calm down.
Hmm.
And so I literally, I could read all night, and it was almost the same state as sleeping for me.
Wow.
And even now I read, I read all the time. And, my master's degree is in literature. And there is a little bit, sometimes I look at my reading, like how much I read, as almost an addiction.
Hmm.
Because, but now with the body keys, I understand that I was self-soothing. And I understand that as a child, I was reading for multiple things. There was a lot of stress in my home growing up. So I was I was using reading to self-soothe and nurture in a turbulent atmosphere.
Yes.
At night, I was using reading to self-soothe in the turbulence of my gift of clairvoyance and not understanding everything. And then as an adult now, it's helping me to understand that when my go-to is reading, or I find that with the time that we're in with coronavirus and everything, that I'm wanting to read a lot. And I'm very calm. I'm not stressed out. But that now I understand it's not a bad habit. It's a pattern that serves a purpose, that helps me go from discard to nurturing, relaxing my body to unlock harmony. So as long as when I'm reading, I'm unlocking the discord of the collective field that I'm living in, and to get to harmony. And also, not only with coronavirus, but I live downtown Tucson. I live one block off of
Oh,
the main downtown drag. And like Bella, like you were saying, there are police cars all the time. There are people walking around. So, I'm reading to self-nurture, because my larger atmosphere or environment is discord.
hmm.
So yeah, I guess that brought me to a bigger awareness of, I'm very calm and I feel very harmonious within my where I live, but there's discord a lot of times outside of my home. And I think I'm feeling, I'm experiencing the energy of the discard of the neighborhood that I'm in, if you will.
Yeah.
And using reading to nurture myself and remain harmonious.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And in this case, it's a rather healthy choice of self-nurturing. So maybe in that regard, it's even a little bit different, Bella, from what you were describing, using maybe an unhealthy habit to self-nurture and then getting stuck in the pattern. In this case, Simone, I think you're 100% right that this is actually something that, if I'm allowed to say this, I don't know, it might be overreaching, but it probably serves not only you, but on a greater scale as well. Certainly the information that you're taking in is serving others. So that's an exciting thing to notice. And while you were speaking amazingly, Bella, I think that a couple of other things came up in response to your initial concern, which I'd love to share if you're both open to hearing it. Yeah, okay. So the first thing that I just noticed, honestly, it's something that's kind of bugged me for a while about the body keys, and it's just now connecting, is you've got 7 primary keys, right? And so we've got these like 7 layers, and each of them correlates to very specific senses and sensors. What I found as I workshopped and contemplated these keys is that one sensor was left out, and no matter how I tried to squeeze it in, it just didn't fit. And to this day, it doesn't. Maybe someday, I don't know, but it's just not there. And it's the sense of taste. So it may be that some part of serving these patterns actually should be kind of compartmentalized in a sense. Maybe it's important because we're dealing with the body on multiple levels, right? Maybe it's important to put food in a separate category. I think it's very easy, especially when you consider that 51% of the population are emotionally defined. It's very, very likely that you've got the better part of, especially modern humans out there, coping with stress and coping with emotional intensity through food, which is only harming their physical system. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting for me, and I've never thought about it until this very moment. It's interesting that taste doesn't play in because maybe we're not really supposed to use our mouths. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's
I love that. I love that. That's something exactly to, where I was going with the emotional eating, and even the thing that for you is the individual circuitry with 3955. So it's not even tribal. So it's not even about nurture, but still I'm sure that that channel, since the emotional definition, has to do with using taste. So I think that's absolutely some truth there.
That's so fun. See, now I just learned something.
Well, yeah. And what's also fantastic for me is that with my key code, I can think about, well, let's just think about this. If a person is an emotional eater, right?
Yes.
With the body keys, I could say, oh, I'm having some mental tension. Let me go to one of the ways that I can actually convert this mental tension into a way that is productive instead of reaching for the food. Yes. So it's oh, I'm emotionally tense. So let me use a strategy that's going to help me get back to my vibrancy.
Yes.
And, to look at it like that, at least try. And it reminds me because in my evolution, I have gene key 35, which is hunger, adventure to, well, the main part is hunger to adventure. So it's try something,
Yes.
And with this, I know exactly, I have a matrix to go and look at, well, what can I try? What can I turn to instead of eating?
That's great.
And isn't that 35 like boundlessness? So what I feel is almost like, you can go one step up, maybe with reading or with food, but really the true relaxation, the boundlessness, that is going to be through not a strategy or a pattern, but actually through really coming back to the body.
Wow, that's good. Yes. Yeah, because all of these like ultimate expressions of our nature, they're humming in our cells, right? They're waiting to radiate from the very core of who we are. There's literally nothing for us to do except get out of the way, and the body keys help us to do that. Simone, what you've just shared is, I just learned something else, because you're totally right. And as you were speaking, I thought of my own mom, and she always says that she's an emotional leader, she's an emotional projector, and this is like an important place for her to continue to bring her attention. So when she finds herself craving something, she knows it's mental, and she'll say it's mental. And so what does my mom do? She cleans. And what is one of her gifts? Or her keys is organization, and so she cleans to the level of OCD that I think all of us Brainards tend to. So I think we all learned it from her, actually, now that I'm saying it. So this is something that she has actually put to use without awareness of the body keys, just because her body knows if her mind is off here going, I need, then the key for her is to come back into her feet and her hands and to get to work vacuuming. Again, it's these very, very simple, otherwise mundane movements that make up our everyday lives that in fact continually draw us back into the soul of our experience. That is that is something that will literally never stop to amaze me. How very obvious and close at hand our salvation is at any given moment, right?
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
So what I'm feeling is there are two more things I'm super interested about, and one is the element of spirit that Simone and I have, and one is a little bit about the PHS. But I'm wondering, since we have been speaking for almost an hour, maybe we should do another session on that so that people can concentrate for 1 hour and then, you know, move their bodies or whatever, and then come back and do another one.
That's a great idea.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So we'll do this in parts.
Let's do it in parts. So thank you for today. Let's do the next part soon.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you both.